lot of arguments on planks like abortion and gay liberation and all. Did that disturb you?
Well, no, that didn't disturb me because they had turned the party platform and the rules over to McGovern and his group of leftists a couple of years ago, and we expected it to turn out something like it did.
Most TV back then was predictable, but Cavett's show was the one you watched hoping something would go wrong, because it often did. Imagine the calm right before a storm. Only the thunder arrives as a famous writer throwing punches or a politician walking out on the debate. We are about to pull back the curtain on these chaotic nights where the host was always caught right in the middle. We're starting not with a fight, but with the moments when the mask slipped, showing vulnerability, media drama, and the price of fame. Number 15. Little Richard puts critics in their place. In 1970, Dick Cavett brought together a panel that seemed like a typical Ivy League debate, serious and a bit dry. It included John Simon, a literary critic, and Eric Siegel, the Yale professor behind the very popular but criticized novel Love Story. What started as a discussion quickly turned into a heated argument over whether a critic who hasn't created art can judge it. Siegel believed a work's value comes from how much it connects with and is enjoyed by a wide audience rather than just meeting strict artistic or intellectual standards. Simon, on the other hand, argued that quality depends on meeting high artistic criteria. The conversation was going nowhere, full of insults and showing off, until Richard, who had been quietly observing them, couldn't stay silent any longer. The rock and roll star, who was often ignored by the same group they were arguing about, stood up and joined in, not to insult, but to calmly explain what it really means to be an artist. He told them that critics often look back at what's already been done, while artists are always moving forward. He said an artist has to stay true to themselves and ignore all the distractions. His honest and unexpected defense of creativity ended their pointless argument. It was a powerful moment when the so-called outsider used the truth to shut down the self-proclaimed experts. Number 14. Joni Mitchell wrote Woodstock without being there. In August 1969, just hours after the legendary Woodstock Festival wrapped up, Cavett hosted what came to be called the Woodstock Show. His guests included musicians David Crosby, Stephen Stills, and members of Jefferson Airplane, all fresh from the muddy festival grounds. They were tired, a bit overwhelmed, and full of amazing stories about the festival. Sitting right beside them was fellow musician Joni Mitchell, who had been invited to perform, but ended up missing the festival. Her manager, worried she wouldn't make it back in time for the important TV appearance on the Dick Cavett Show, told her to stay in New York. The irony. She was the only one on the couch who hadn't been to the biggest music event of the decade, yet she sat there listening as her friends shared their vivid stories. She was inspired by the overwhelming feelings of the time and wrote Woodstock in her hotel room. The song became the anthem for a whole generation. Even though she missed the festival, she still captured its essence, and this was shared during her talk on Cavett's couch. Number 13. The adult content episodes. If you want to see how Dick Cavett wasn't afraid to push limits, just look at how he dedicated 2 whole shows in the early 70s to the topic of adult content. It was such a hot-button issue that TV networks wouldn't even touch it, especially not as a serious, thoughtful discussion. But Cavett brought together lawyers, doctors, bishops, and psychiatrists for a talk about censorship and its impact on society, sparked by a Supreme Court ruling at the time. The conversation was pretty graphic back then, which led to a big fight, with the network's censors. The censors were up in arms over using clinical terms like oral genital sex on TV. Cavett stood his ground, saying that without proper medical language, the experts couldn't have an honest conversation. Just having a primetime talk show openly discuss the adult film world and explicit acts was a major moment for American TV. It brought the topic out of the shadows and into the public eye. The show made waves and showed that no subject was off limits. As we get closer to the countdown, things really start heating up. We're moving past intellectual debates and shocking political moments to times when guests just couldn't take the heat and walked out live on air. Number 12. Mark Frechette and Daria Halprin's bizarre interview. In the year 1970, Dick Cavett sat down with Mark Frechette and Daria Halprin, the fresh faces from the counterculture film Zabriskie Point. Michelangelo Antonioni had famously discovered them, but when they showed up on Cavett's set, they didn't behave like typical movie stars promoting their work. Instead, they seemed tense, like they were being watched. It turned out they were involved in a strange religious cult led by a man named Mel Lyman. Their replies were short and hostile and didn't fit the conversation at all. Instead of discussing the movie, they talked about life on communes, dropping cryptic and unsettling comments that often ignored Cavett's questions completely. They came across as paranoid, uneasy, and totally out of place on a TV talk show. Even Cavett, who usually handled tough situations with ease, started to feel genuinely uncomfortable. He could tell something was seriously off, so he made the rare call to cut to a commercial break and then refused to continue the interview when they came back. The unsettling vibe of the conversation, combined with their cult ties, made it one of the most famously awkward and shortest guest spots in TV history. Number 11. John Lennon and Yoko Ono's FBI claims. In December 1971, John Lennon and Yoko Ono joined Dick Cavett and openly claimed they were being closely watched by the US government. As active voices in the anti-war movement, they accused the FBI of monitoring their every move and tapping their phones. At the time, many people and the media dismissed these claims as political paranoia, thinking of them as just two rich celebrity activists blowing things out of proportion. Cavett took their concerns seriously, but without solid proof, the accusations stayed under public speculation. What makes this moment truly insane is that years later, the Nixon White House tapes were released, proving everything Lennon and Ono said was true. The tapes revealed that President Nixon and his team saw them as a threat and talked about ways to legally and illegally harass them, even trying to get them deported. Cavett was also labeled an enemy because of his political views. So what many thought was just celebrity paranoia was actually a terrifying reality. Their claims on live TV turned out to be completely true. Number 10. Marlon Brando's post-show assault. Marlon Brando's June 1973 appearance was bound to be unforgettable. Earlier that year, he had made headlines by refusing his Oscar for The Godfather and sending Sachin Littlefeather, a Native American activist, to speak for him. On Cavett's show, Brando took it further. He insisted on facing only the camera, turning his back to the audience throughout the interview. That act of protest alone stunned viewers. But the real shock came the moment the broadcast ended. As Brando was leaving the studio, he noticed a freelance photographer trying to take his picture. In a sudden burst of anger, Brando attacked the photographer, punching him and breaking his jaw. This shocking moment revealed just how volatile Brando's emotions were throughout the evening. It showed that the calm protest he displayed on camera was driven by rage that erupted into violence as soon as he left the stage. The incident highlighted the political climate of the time and the heavy toll that came with being a celebrity activist in the 1970s. And now, we're stepping away from political statements and diving straight into unfiltered absurdity. The next 3 moments on our countdown are packed with strange props, shocking profanities that shook the networks, and unexpected boundary pushing that no one saw coming. Number 9. Christine Jorgensen walks off. When Christine Jorgensen appeared on the Dick Cavett Show in 1968, she was already a trailblazer. As the first widely known American woman to undergo gender reassignment surgery, she spoke with grace and honesty about her journey, opening the door for conversations about gender. But even on Cavett's progressive show, some boundaries weren't meant to be crossed. When Cavett started asking more and more personal questions, especially about her romantic life, Jorgensen felt those questions went too far. What began as respectful curiosity turned into something invasive, focusing on private details rather than her important work. The conversation quickly turned uncomfortable. Instead of continuing, she stood up, told the host she was offended, and walked off the set. It was a spontaneous protest against how trans people were being treated in the media, a message that her personal boundaries weren't up for public debate, even on a show known for being thoughtful. Number 8. The first F-bomb on US live TV. Remember the Woodstock show from before? It wasn't just Joni Mitchell's moment that made it unforgettable. Later in that wild episode, Jefferson Airplane took the stage to perform We Can Be Together. In a bold statement of the counterculture they stood for, lead singer Grace Slick shouted the unedited lyrics live on national TV, including lines like, "We are all outlaws in the eyes of America," and, more importantly, the F words. The moment she said those words, chaos broke out in the control rooms and at the network's headquarters. It was a groundbreaking moment that broke TV censorship rules. While many people were shocked, it showed the clash between generations and how artists wanted to express themselves freely. That performance was a bold challenge to the old system. Number 7. Salvador Dali's Antita prop. If there was ever a guest meant to stir things up, it was Salvador Dali, the surrealist genius. When he appeared in 1968, he came prepared, bringing a live ocelot on a leash. The moment was bizarre from the start, especially as Dali struggled to give an answer, weirdly comparing a cauliflower to a math problem. But the real madness came when, without warning, he placed the ocelot right into the lap of his fellow guest, the dignified silent film legend Lillian Gish. Gish, who had bravely faced down villains on silent movie sets, was visibly shaken and terrified at that moment. Cavett was frantic, trying to control the live ocelot, while comforting the horrified actress. This incident perfectly captured the spirit of the Dick Cavett Show, a strange blend of art and chaos, with Dali's eccentricity showing no regard for convention or comfort. It was a reminder that on Cavett's stage, anything could happen, and usually did. That shift from chaos to reality really shows the range of the Dick Cavett Show. Cavett's willingness to speak honestly, even when it put him in danger politically, made the show more than just entertainment. It became a platform for truth, no matter the cost. Next, we dive into these moments where things got shockingly real. Number 6. Lily Tomlin's walkout. In 1972, actress and comedian Lily Tomlin appeared on the show with actor Chad Everett. Everett, who was there to promote his show Medical Center, made a joke about his wife that wasn't funny at all. He called her the most beautiful animal I own." The remark hung heavy in the room, an unmistakably sexist comment that perfectly showed the old-fashioned mindset Cavett's show was always pushing back against. Tomlin, known for her wit and strong feminist beliefs, was immediately furious. She tried to respond, but when Everett insisted on treating women like possessions, she had enough. In an unscripted moment of protest on live TV, Tomlin stood up and walked off the set. Her sudden exit was a powerful public stand against sexism and outdated gender roles, making headlines everywhere. It showed that on Cavett's show, a guest's principles mattered more than any TV contract. Number 5. Lester Maddox's segregation walk-off. Dick Cavett was known for bringing on guests with strong, often conflicting opinions, and none was more divisive than former Georgia Governor Lester Maddox. On the December 18, 1970 episode, Cavett hosted a landmark, widely watched debate featuring Maddox, the outspoken segregationist, Truman Capote, the brilliant writer, and Jim Brown, the former NFL star and passionate activist. Right from the start, the tension was thick, especially with Brown, a powerful voice for Black America, sitting across from a man who had once wielded an axe handle to enforce segregation. The clash between them even heated up during a commercial break. During the break, Brown confronted Cavett, asking if he ever had issues with white bigots backing the show. When they came back on air, Cavett tried to soften the blow by swapping bigots for admirers. But Maddox was already furious. He demanded a full apology for offending Georgians. Cavett, true to form, gave a clever but evasive reply. "If I've called anyone a bigot who isn't a bigot, I apologize." Maddox, frustrated and unable to defend himself against the panel, stood up and stormed off the set. As the defeated Maddox walked off, Truman Capote nailed the moment with a legendary mic drop. "I've been to his restaurant, and his chicken isn't that finger-licking good." That line broke the tension and turned the walk-off into an unforgettable classic in talk show history. Number 4. Nixon's retaliation. The biggest threat to the Dick Cavett show didn't come from a rock star or a difficult actor. It came straight from the White House. President Nixon and his team despised Cavett's bold criticism, especially his Vietnam War coverage and interviews with critics like John Kerry and John Lennon. The truly shocking part came years later with the release of the Nixon White House tapes, revealing the president actively plotting against Cavett. In one Oval Office recording, Nixon can be heard asking his chief of staff, H.R. Haldeman, "Well, is there any way we can screw him?" That line confirmed Cavett had landed on Nixon's infamous enemies list. The retaliation was chilling. Cavett later revealed that after the White House complaints, nearly every member of his modest staff faced punitive IRS tax audits. This wasn't just a TV rivalry, it was a political battle, with a president weaponizing federal agencies to intimidate a talk show host who dared to ask questions. It's what truly made Cavett's show stand out as a symbol of fearless independence. Now, we're down to the top 3 moments, the point where the show stopped being just a debate and turned into something much more intense. This is where the celebrity meltdowns begin, along with a tragedy so great that no script could have ever prepared anyone for it. Number 3. The husbands trio's drunken antics. Dick Cavett was always known for being calm, but there was one night he later called his worst show. The guests were the stars of John Cassavetes' film Husbands, Cassavetes himself, Ben Gazzara, and Peter Falk. The 3 showed up drunk and immediately threw the set into chaos. They had no interest in a typical interview. ignoring Cavett's questions, laughing at the wrong moments, and talking over each other. The situation reached its peak when Peter Falk, famous for playing Columbo, caused a physical disruption that left everyone stunned. At one point, Falk dramatically flopped off the couch and crawled on the floor, completely ignoring the fact that the show was live on television. Cavett struggled visibly to keep things under control, desperately trying to maintain some sense of order as the line between a performance and a total disaster became impossible to tell. The whole thing was a chaotic, humiliating mess, and Cavett himself admitted he had lost complete control, making this episode one of the most infamous examples of live TV chaos. Number 2. J.I. Rodale's on-air death. On June 8, 1971, the show had its most shocking unscripted moment. J.I. Rodale, a 72-year-old publisher and advocate for health and organic food, was the unfortunate victim. The irony was heartbreaking. Just minutes earlier, during his interview, Rodale had proudly told Cavett he expected to live to 100 and had never felt better in his life. The incident happened during a commercial break after his segment ended. Rodale was sitting next to the next guest, journalist Pete Hamill, when he made a slight snoring sound and suddenly slumped over. At first, Cavett thought he was joking or had dozed off, but Hamill quickly realized something was seriously wrong. Cavett immediately called out for a doctor in the audience, and medical personnel rushed onto the stage to perform CPR on Rodale. Unfortunately, he could not be revived and was pronounced dead on arrival at Roosevelt Hospital. The event was so tragic that the network decided never to air the episode. Despite this, many people believe they have seen the footage, an example of the Mandela effect, because the incident was widely reported, but the actual footage was never released to the public. We've seen meltdowns, walk-offs, political sabotage, and even tragedy, but there's one moment that stands out above them all. It's a mix of literary brilliance, physical confrontation, and a test of Dick Cavett's quick thinking. This, my friends, is the wildest night in talk show history. Number 1. Norman Mailer's backstage headbutt and on-air feud. The most explosive and chaotic moment in the Dick Cavett Show's history has to be the showdown between novelists Norman Mailer and Gore Vidal. Their long-standing feud reached a boiling point after Vidal wrote a harsh essay comparing Mailer to Charles Manson. The real madness started off-camera. Just before going on set, a drunk Mailer attacked Vidal backstage, headbutting him in the green room. Despite the shocking assault, Vidal kept his composure and walked out onto the set. The broadcast that followed turned into a battle of words, with personal insults and intense intellectual sparring. Mailer, fueled by alcohol and anger, was openly aggressive and demanded Vidal address him directly. Vidal stayed calm, easily keeping the upper hand, which only made Mailer more frustrated. Caught in the middle, Cavett delivered a perfectly timed, memorable line that broke the tension. "Would you like 2 more chairs to contain your giant intellect?" That one comment eased the hostility and made the episode a legendary example of intellectual chaos. From physical altercations and political conspiracies to on-air tragedy, the Dick Cavett Show proved that real conversations are often messy, volatile, and unforgettable. These 15 moments cement Cavett's legacy as the king of intellectual chaos, a late-night host who dared to let the truth, however shocking, take center stage. We've seen it all, from physical fights to live animals on set. If Dick Cavett were still hosting today, which celebrity or politician do you think would create the most unpredictable moment on his show? Let us know in the comments below. If you found this story as fascinating as we did, click on the next video on your screen. And don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more deep dives into history's greatest mysteries.